Listen, here's the thing. If you can't spot the sucker in your first half hour at the table, then you are the sucker. Guys around here will tell you, you play for a living. It's like any other job. You don't gamble. You grind it out. Your goal is to win one big bet an hour. That's it. Get your money in when you have the best of it. Protect it when you don't. Don't give anything away. That's how I've paid my way through half of law school. A true grinder.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Granite Mountain Movie Club. If you're a new listener, and you might be because we have a special guest today, this is a show where we talk about movies, sometimes other things like music or pop culture in general. Some of the fans of the show have told me that it's based and red-pilled. I've still not really figured out what those words mean, but I'm told it's a compliment. So that gives you an idea of where we're coming from. So I've got Degree Studies here and Cool Frasier here. I'll let you guys say hi.
Hi.
Hi, I'm Cool and I'm listening.
Yeah, and if you listen to the show, you know those guys. You probably know our other guest too, just because he's kind of a well-known guy in these parts. So we've got a first-time guest, Bog Beef. Welcome, Bog.
How y'all doing?
We are doing good. And if you don't know, if you're one of the few people who listen to this show who might not happen to know, Bog is one of the co-hosts of the Good Ol Boyz Podcast, which is, really one of the best podcasts. I would say like kind of one of the best podcasts on this part of Twitter, but not just that. It's just a great podcast. I've been listening to podcasts for, since they were a thing, when I guess Adam Carolla kind of gets some of the credit for starting them out. And, that's just a great podcast. I feel qualified to say I know know good stuff when I see it. So if you haven't subscribed to their thing, you guys are on Patreon, and you do live shows on Twitch. Is that right? Yeah,
live once a week on Twitch. That's and we're on Patreon, patreon.com/GODOLBOYZ. Yes.
Yeah, go subscribe. This show that I do is free, but we have great guests like this come on. It is great if you could go and support them. With that, we got Bog here today to talk about, I think, a pretty fun movie, and he's got a background in some of this stuff. So we're talking today about Rounders from 1998. Rounders is a film about a guy playing poker who's gotten himself in some trouble.
Well,
oh yeah.
If you don't mind, I just want to start out. So, I love poker. I spent many years sort of playing professionally. I have no problem saying that. I wasn't on TV or anything, but just like the guys in the movie, there is a number of people who, which basically means that you live off of a bankroll. So you have a amount of cash that it doesn't come from your job or something like that. You have a bankroll and you play off that and you live off the winnings and stuff. I wasn't a high limit player or anything like that. I know some, but this movie it's not like I don't know what this. My question is, someone that's not ensconced. So, there's movies that are like, oh, it's a movie where they play baseball, but really it's about coming of age or a relationship between a son and a father and all this kind of stuff. So I don't know how much is this enjoyable for people that that never were ensconced in poker.
Well, I can jump in there and just say I don't even know how to play poker. Like if you sat me down, I literally don't know how to play. I thought about learning for this episode, but I got busy. And with that, I still like it. I like it quite a bit. To me, it's essentially a sports movie, and I might not know all the beats of the game of poker itself, but the movie does a pretty good job telling you when something's important happening. Now, I have no idea if what they're saying makes any sense, like if it's true to the game, but I still enjoy it.
Plus, could you imagine? How much this cast would have cost to put together, like these actors and actresses, putting them together, like, I don't know, 10 years later or something. It's just full of huge stars.
Yeah, we've got Matt Damon. This is, I think, a year after Good Will Hunting, so he'd done a little bit, but he wasn't.
He was
huge
on the
yet.
map.
Yeah,
Not huge.
And then Edward Norton, who was in a similar spot. He had done, I think, a little bit more than Damon. He hadn't done American History X yet, and he was about to do that, I think, the year after this. But then we've got John Malkovich, who was already pretty big. John Turturro. Who else do we got in this one?
Famke Janssen, I think it's Janssen.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and Gretchen Mol, who I don't know what happened to her career exactly, but I think she was kind of a bigger thing in the 90s.
Can I answer Bog's question as well? I think so. I played poker with a bunch of other idiots in college. So basically don't know anything, know the rules of Hold'em, and have played once at a casino at a table, and I just got pushed around, maybe played one hand, and then freaked out and left. So that gives you an idea of my experience. But I do think that poker is very cool, and it's very interesting thinking about what type of psychology would make a good poker player. Because I do always think when I'm watching this movie, I'm like, I'm good at reading people. Why am I not good at this? And there is a part where Matt Damon says, one of the general rules is the nicer guy you are, the worse card player you are. And I think that probably applies to me. I think I'm okay at reading other people, but the other essential skill is probably hiding your own emotions. And that's probably the part where I have no capacity. And so I think because that psychology of what makes a good poker player is so interesting, the subject of the movie is very interesting. I'll just lob one bomb out here that I think one of my issues with the movie is that poker is really cool by itself, but the movie really needs you to know that poker is cool and insists on that a lot. It's just oh, poker is so badass. These guys are so cool. And I think there could have been a little more show, don't tell, but I do still think it's a very enjoyable movie.
Well, there was one kind of contextual thing. The World Series of Poker had been around, but I think, as I understand it, it really took off in the year or two after this movie. So, I mean, it's always been cool, right?
Yeah. That's when I got into poker, was when they started actually having the camera showing the people's cards, right? So, that technology of having a small enough camera so what cards people have as they're playing, that was what happened around this time and kind of changed the game and made it more watchable as a TV sport. I guess.
ESPN pushed it pretty big.
Yeah. And so that obviously kind of changed things. And also I think this movie is probably part of the trend of getting into poker, but because it was for me, I watched this when I was a teenager and I did think poker was the coolest thing ever. And being a poker player made you cool.
Yeah. I mean, so a couple things I'd say. So first off, there are plenty of things in the movie that are inaccurate, but nowhere near as much as you would think. And this movie really captures, I mean, it's hard to believe because from what I understand, this doesn't happen very often. There's no people that they always say doctors can't watch, doctor shows, doctor movies and stuff because they're so BS. Yeah. This movie just captures everything there is about, I don't know if it's so much exactly playing the game, but sort of living the poker life, being around there. There's, it's just so on the money. Now, as far as the popularity of poker, one thing that you'll see in the movie, and this is absolutely true. So, poker is not something that you can just be good at on your own. The only, what matters is who you're sitting down with. Right. So, I don't know. There's a number of people in just the United States alone, or well, let's just say, I mean, I don't know. There's a number of people that are sort of known as being wealthy guys that are terrible card players. The two biggest are definitely Michael Jordan and the guy that owns UFC,
Dana White.
Dana White. So like, but they both love to play poker. So you'll see the movie is centered around like trying to get seats with people that suck at poker, because that's just such an important part of playing poker is who you're sitting with, and you really do chase games and chase who you're sitting with. There's a small example. So I don't know if he's still on. I don't know if he still has an account, but there used to be this account on one of the big poker websites or whatever. And it was called like Skywalker, 317 or something. And they would sit down, and it was obvious that they were not a professional poker player, and they had shitloads of money. And people were pretty sure it was Jordan or a shared account between Jordan and Barkley, who's also a gambling addict. And as soon as they would sit down, that table would hit like, 50 people waiting, which is basically every poker pro in the world that's awake at that moment is like, please let me sit down with this guy.
So when Michael Jordan shows up to a game, he's just getting ripped off for like 10 grand at a time or something like that, or more, way more.
Well, I mean, so with there's a great example. So there used to be this poker show on like there used to be a variety of poker shows on late night TV. By the way, if you're wondering like why did poker get big and then go away, that's all legislation, right? So there was a poker is centered around the fish, around the bad players, because that's like one of the only problems with the movie is like, oh, I can't wait to go to the World Series of Poker. Well, I mean, that's like really the worst place to take your money, to play against another bunch of other people that are also very good. Your margin is quite thin there. So, but so the thing about guys like Jordan and the dude that owns UFC, I think the guy that owns UFC has so much money that it's pretty difficult for him to hurt at the table. There's a great example. Sorry, I was going to say he's playing poker on one of these late night TV shows, a cash game. It's a real cash game, and comes to the end of the hand, they show down. There's some kind of dispute about the rules, about who won the hand. They're not sure. And in a lot of situations like that, the players will agree to chop it. You say, well, we'll just split the money, split the end of the hand evenly. I'm not really sure who won, etc. Just keep a cool atmosphere and stuff like that. Well, the guy that owns you, and this hand was for like $500,000 or something. And the UFC guy, Dana White, he goes, I just keep it. Just keep it. Because I mean, that money is nothing to him. That's like 10 cents to him. That means nothing. Now, the other thing is that, so a lot of poker is centered around addiction, gambling addicts. That is represented by Worm, Edward Norton in the movie.
Yeah.
If Edward Norton plays this role so well, so the guy that got me into poker was a gambling addict. I mean, it's interesting. They have a unique role in the game. People like that. I know many people like this. You get to know them when you play a lot of poker. So they're always borrowing money and stuff, just like he is. If you ask them, what happened to your money? They say, well, I had a bad run of cards, all this kind of stuff. It's just so true. They're always looking for somebody to stake them. That means let them borrow some money, and et cetera. But the thing about the gambling addict that makes them so interesting is that, the gambling addict wants to lose. Like they have like this emotional thing where that, those people that cut themselves.
Yeah.
They're like, that sort of emotion, that sort of physical pain is able to, from what I understand, it sort of like crowds out, emotional pain. Right. So they're like, so they're, from what I understand, this has been sort of studied, and it's like, it's almost like a biological process where that I'm sorry if this is getting down or whatever, but this is a huge part of this world is these people. And anyway, so the person that cuts themselves, they cut themselves, and that hurts, but that hurts less than thinking about whatever their childhood or whatever kind of problems they have, whatever. But the gambling addict is the same. So, and they can't feel that unless it hurts. Like it's like, but another way to think of it is like, if you're thinking right now, we're sitting down, we're having a podcast. I'm having a Coke. Everything's normal and fine. There's nothing going on in my world, my life right now. Everything's happy and cool. Well, what if I was to take the money that I would use to pay, I don't pay rent, but if I was paying rent for like the next 3 months, I'll take all my savings and I just gambled it all away. And now things are serious. Now I have to flip over into a fight or flight mode. Everything is real. Reality is, and so to answer your question, from what I understand, Jordan is a genuine gambling addict, and he gambled all his money away at some point. And this was like in the 90s. This is like when he was, earning ungodly amounts of money. And so he would play basketball and sign deals with Nike, collect that money, and then he would take it to casinos and to poker tables and drop it all. Because that's the only, for these people, I mean, I don't know, I'm not a psychiatrist, I don't know all this kind of stuff, but that's the only way they can feel alive. I mean, to some extent.
I grew up in Utah, so I was a Utah Jazz fan, and the Michael Jordan flu game. Mm-hmm. The speculation about the flu games, he did not have the flu. He was just up all night gambling. Like that's why he was tired, and sick. But then he still dropped.
I mean, that stuff, that's an onion that gets worse. I mean, that there's so we're told his father was just randomly killed by psychos when he broke down on the side of the road, right?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the scuttlebutt is that was over a gambling debt.
Yeah, I remember that one too.
But yeah, Bog, you asked about what this movie is about for people who don't know much about cards, and I think addiction is what it is in part about. Like I haven't known card addicts, but I've known drug addicts, and like drug addicts act like worm. Mm-hmm. And part of the thing that's frustrating about the movie, or not in a bad way, like it works for tension, is that like Matt Damon's character is so tolerant of worms being like a complete shithead and really making like betrayals that even your dumbass friend shouldn't make. And I think like that's an interesting dynamic, and it's also interesting that we can get to it if we go through the plot, but it's interesting that Damon ultimately wins, by becoming a little bit more like Worm, like becoming more like flying by the seat of his pants and taking risks that are not necessarily rational. So like on the one hand, the movie presents this total addict who is totally doomed, but his more rational friend sort of takes on some of his persona to win the ultimate victory. So it's like it's a very interesting presentation of that.
Yeah, I think Damon's the ultimate enabler to his gambling addict friend.
Yeah, if it was a better movie, they probably would have done more and made Damon like explicitly, not just through his actions, but explicitly a codependent, which someone that's just constantly enabling him and stuff like that. Because of course, in real life, if you deal with people like Worm, the only way that they can get better is to say no. You can't have any more money. Your behavior is very disappointing to me. I don't want to talk to you unless you straighten your life out. That's the only way you can sort of deal with people like that.
See, but that wouldn't be cool, right? They made gambling addiction cool in this movie, and so
I think it could be kind of cool. I think Kanish is the secret hero of this movie, and I want a Kanish movie where we just see him make his rent money and be reasonable.
Well, the Joey Kanish character is also another great, like that's so perfect, but not so much just like, oh, there's weird guys like Kanish, but like guys like Kanish is the only way you can make it. I mean, so the deal in poker is that remember, you're playing with a bankroll. If you're a real player, if you're playing for money, if you're a professional, you have a bankroll. So you just have this big stack of money, and you have to use bits of that to make more money. Now, obviously, if you're a gambling addict, you can't do that. You're gonna be like, you're gonna take all that money and you're gonna bet it all soon. So the only way you can survive and handle the swings, because one thing about poker is that the only reason that bad people or people that aren't as good as you at poker are willing to play is they don't know that, because they still win plenty of the time. They win 4 hands out of 10 or whatever, because that's the only reason why they're willing to play in the first place. So you're going to have swings. Like if I have aces and you have kings before the hand even starts, you bet, I re-raise, you re-raise, we go all in. I should win the hand, but I can still lose the hand. Definitely. It's not even like that aces over kings is a real good position to be, but you still, if the guy was to draw a king or something like that, and that would destroy your world, well, you don't have the mindset to play poker. I'm sorry. That you're going to lose plenty of the time. That's why you have to, so basically in real life, you only 1/15 of your total bankroll needs to be on the table at a time. And the thing about the gambling addiction versus like a normal versus someone that doesn't have it is there's a weird thing with this, right? So like with heroin addiction or something like that, or crack or something, I've never done crack. I would never want to do crack. That just has no meaning to me. Now, if you go to most people, if you go to something like food addiction, well, I don't know. Most people have thought, gosh, I shouldn't have had that extra slice of pie. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Now, when you go to gambling, well, if I was to take like a third of my bankroll and set it on the table, I would be feeling very weird things. I would start my heartbeat would go up. I would start, there's like a whole emotional process is going on inside you. Now, whether or not you choose to do that, I guess is where the addiction goes up. So the last time I played poker, I'd been out for a while, and the reason I got out is the reason why most people that were around my stakes level got out was that they signed this huge bill. I can't think of the name of it, but basically it was easy for beginner players, normal players, to deposit money online for a long time. You used to see all these commercials for Poker Stars and all these different poker websites. Well, they passed this law to make it so it wasn't impossible. If you were somebody like me, I definitely could have got money online, but that's not how poker works. If the fish can't, if it's annoying for the fish to put their money online, then it's dead. It's over. Now, I could have still kept playing casinos and stuff, but the problem with that is the game is so slow. It's so slow. The only thing about it being cool, it is not that cool. Well, anyways,
I was on the cool issue. I was looking at World Series of Poker winner, the list of winners and stuff, and looking at their pictures and stuff, and it's like, it's kind of the same guys that you might see at like a comic book convention. Like I see a lot of heavyset guys, I see a lot of Asian guys, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Well,
not that there's anything wrong with that.
Well, it's just that they're not. It's not, the personalities are not necessarily the
sure. Well, in the movie they cite like Doyle Brunson and stuff like that, who kind of won all the time because they were the guys who like did it right. And then once it opened up to like having thousands and thousands of people, you started seeing, a lot of like online poker player guys who would make their way to the World Series and try to make it big.
Right now, like there are definitely cool people that play poker. Like the best example is, of course, Patrick Antonius. Patrick with 1K. Everybody, just go look at a picture of this guy. This is it. He's a guy who, one of these people that's just sort of like, they have it.
Yeah, I'm looking him up now.
Yeah. Handsome, athletic, brilliant.
Oh, yeah, I know this guy.
He could do anything. Like, he could really do anything he wanted to. I mean, he was like a tennis pro for a while or something. They're definitely cool people. The problem with the whole poker being cool is, first off, the game in casinos is slow. It is slow. I mean, especially this is something if you're going to play in casinos, you're going to be sitting down there for like 8 to 10 hours at a time.
And you're only playing like 10 hands in that time or something.
Right. And so, spending 10 hours in a chair, in a row, a lot of times in a row, it's going to be very hard for you to look cool after doing that for a couple of years.
Well, yeah, I will just say, as a person with no stake in it who will never be at those tables, I'm much happier as a viewer when like a 350-pound Indian guy who looks like he works for Windows or Microsoft wins than when some cool tennis pro wins. I don't know if that just means I'm a resentful person, but that seems more like the way the world should be.
You want to see Jeet here playing
yeah, exactly.
Bog, what you were just saying leads to a question that I was curious about. Now, I think, I mean, I'm a big listener of your show, and I think you've said that you've never been to New York City.
Never.
And so obviously in the movie, like Worm and Mike McD, Mike McD is Damon's character and Worm is Norton's character. They have no problem finding a game. Any hour of the day in New York City, they can just go find a game. Some of them are underground, some of them are, cops, Elks Lodge sort of games.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so if you were not, I don't know, I don't know where you're from or whatever, but outside of a metro area, like what would someone do?
Well, so first off, I don't know if people know this, but there is, just like in the movie, there's underground poker going on everywhere, all the time. There's these little card rooms, and now this depends on where you're at. Like, there probably isn't anywhere in Nevada because, for obvious reasons, you could just go to a casino, and generally, it depends on what the rake is like and stuff. So, the house is going to take a cut of every hand. Now, that cut can get big enough to where it doesn't make it mathematically a good idea to play poker.
Well, so I teach a class, and my last class I actually had 2 professional poker players in it.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them was a guy who got second place in one of the World Poker Tour championships. He had the biggest lead that he lost because he got too drunk.
He has a record for losing a lead.
Yeah. And but so I kind of talked to him about it. I was like, so what do you do? And so he would just go around finding low level tournaments. So like there's World Series of Poker, right, which is like your top one, but there's tournaments where you buy in with like $50 and only like the top 10 people get money, but he's good enough to make it to the top 10 all the time. And so like, that's how he made his money. And then the other guy was a young kid, but his dad was a pro, who Bog would probably know, but I don't know if I'll name him. But
so the last time I got invited to one of these games, and I mean, now this is kind of getting into cool stuff, I suppose, but a lot of these house games are run by what you would consider small time organized crime. And a lot of people won't even think of this stuff as organized crime. Like, if you've ever worked at a big office, you ever had somebody that would sell, what do they call them? These football cards, where you buy these cards for like $10, and you pick who's going to win on Saturday, and if you get so many to win or whatever, then this card is like redeemable for money. I'm not using that terms right because I never worked at a place like that, but a lot of people have been around stuff like that. I mean, I asked around that with people I knew, people in my family and stuff, and they didn't even understand that whoever was selling those cards was a criminal. But I promise you that whatever that is your version of the mafia. Which the mafia, it doesn't, most of these people like in these mafia outfits and still doing stuff like that, they're not stealing millions of dollars and stuff. They're just little crooks. And anyways, the last time I got invited to one of these places, so I would generally mostly play online because, if you can play online, you can play 7-8 tables at a time and stuff. And it's, the rake is so much lower. But I would go now live. You can play live. The thing is, the players are just absolutely terrible compared to anything online. Even back then, back when there was lots of fish playing online, there's just nothing like playing live in a casino. I mean, the players are just terrible. However, the game was so slow. And the rake was so high that, man, I don't know if it was even worth it, but I would only go, on when they had free beer night or nickel beer or whatever. Because the games were just unbelievable. You know what I mean? There's all these guys are loaded. And, it was just free money.
What's the casino's motivation to keep it slow? Is that a regulation thing? Like only so many hands per hour or something?
I mean, so the casino has a weird relationship with poker. So, the thing about poker, it's the only game you can win at in a casino because you're not playing against the house. So, the house is just sort of hosting you playing other people.
Okay.
They just sort of take a charge on every hand of, the rake. So every, I don't know. It's been a minute, but if you're playing for thousands of dollars or whatever, and the casino gets 5-10% or whatever. It's been a long time.
But they'd rather you go over to higher margin games.
I mean, it's crazy. From what I understand, most casinos. Now, I'm not talking about Vegas. So Vegas, they want to have poker and stuff. But you go to a lot of casinos, they're not going to have poker. I mean, because they would much. I mean, if I ran a casino, I would much rather you play blackjack or something like that. Or you're playing against the house. You're gonna, yeah. Now the thing about poker is the casino always wins because they're just sort of taxing the hosting of the game. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you win big at the poker table, you go throw it down in another game or something, so they get the money back somehow.
Yeah, hopefully. Now, a lot of people. So, if you have the right mindset for poker, you would never play. You would never play table games. So, I've spent I've spent a lot of time at casinos. I've literally never played a hand of blackjack. I've never pulled the handle on a
slot
machine.
Right.
And because the way you train your mind by this kind of stuff, which starts by reading these books, which I thought was great. With the beginning of the movie, they show him he hides his money in these books. Well, these books become your life, and not so. You start out reading the books, and then you sort of spend your time online doing these sort of hand puzzles and stuff. But you have to be thinking about it constantly. It has to be. That's another thing that's great about the movie is they show that if you're trying to play poker for a living, you don't have anything else. It's not like a job. You just I know people. Last job I had, there was a guy there that he had a band that would play Saturday nights and stuff like that, play on Wednesdays and stuff. And the job was just, he would show up, he would do stuff, but the second that clock hit 5 o'clock, he didn't give S about that job. That was just a place that he would go to get health insurance. There's nothing like that in poker. You have to be all in. So yeah.
I was going to make a point on the crime side of things of this movie in general. Bennett, Extra Dead JCB on Twitter, he always says he doesn't like crime shows because where the protagonist is a criminal, something like Walter White or The Sopranos or something like that, because ultimately the moral of the story is crime doesn't pay. And they somehow end up losing everything because they were too greedy for trying to make money outside of the approved legal channels, right? And he's like, I want to see someone who just is successful at it. And I was watching this movie and I was like, hey, this is the movie. This is where it turns out him trying to stop playing poker just made it worse, and he should have just kept playing. He should have just kept.
Yeah, that is. We talked earlier about the theme of the movie, and I do think the main theme, or the main sort of idea of the movie, is like, and this is kind of like the libtard worldview, but it is the main idea of the movie, I think, which is just like you have to be true to yourself. You have to be who you are, and it's like they have this big segment with his Jewish professor who sort of plays the proxy rabbi role, and he's just like, oh, I couldn't be a rabbi. I just couldn't. Like, 1,000 years of men in my family were rabbis, but I had to be true to myself, which was being a law professor, I guess. But
you have to exit the longhouse to follow your dream.
Yeah, and then Kanish tells him that too in the end. It's like, this is just like what you have to do. Like, it's who you are. Yeah.
So this is great friend of the show. I can never remember people's names, even if I know them. He wrote this book called Identity After Authenticity. Hans-Georg Muller. So Hans-Georg Muller wrote this great book about this. I think it's honestly one of the most. He's a philosopher. I think he's one of the most brilliant people around, and this idea he's got is just, it's unbelievable the way how well it just sort of describes the way people think and people have changed about this. And but part of his theory is so his idea is that there's sort of three modes of identity that we've had over the past, I don't know how many years, but it's basically sincerity, authenticity, and now prophilicity. Now, if you, and this movie it's definitely an authenticity movie. This is the whole be true to yourself. Everyone is this sort of this individual, and you have this sort of magic in yourself, blah blah blah. Of course, like, I mean, that there are still people that sort of pursue this, and a lot of times there's a lot of like, we got to go back stuff about this, but what they don't realize is, I mean, authenticity was bullshit too. I mean, it was just another thing. Like, well, anyways, now we have prophilicity. Now, instead of like being true to yourself, of like, there's this sort of like authentic person that you have to become or whatever, reveal through your art and all this kind of crap. Now you pick profile stuff. So now you're trans, Chinese, communist, you got all these like profile markers.
Degree studies is all three of those things, by the way.
Yeah, that's true.
He's a trans Chinese commie.
Right. So now this movie definitely leans into that authenticity stuff, which is, I mean, that was also bullshit. This is the end of authenticity, was that like 10 million women that so there's you never met another woman like me. The hippie movement was perfect about this, because people in the hippie movement didn't think about it like, later on, you're like, I'm going to become a goth. I'm going to hang out with the goths. We're all going to wear the same clothes and stuff like that. That wasn't how hippies just perceive themselves, as sort of pursuing this independent, authentic life, living free and wild, just doing whatever. Although, you can look now back on that, sounds absurd. They all looked exactly the same. And
they smelled the same too.
Mm-hmm.
Bog, I don't want to get too bogged down on this, to use a word, but what was the distinction in that book between sincerity and authenticity? Because those sort of seem like similar concepts in my mind.
So sincerity is just, you are what you are, what you do, right? So like, this is like, people like, people, there's, you meet somebody, their name is John Baker. That means one of their ancestor, whatever, was John the Baker. That was his idea. Like, that was his identity. He was a baker. He had to do that as his job. Most likely this, they didn't go to school and stuff like that. So this was just handed down to him by his father or whatever. You didn't identify as something, you just were that. And that doesn't make sense now, because you don't just slot into whatever you're doing anymore, or at least, I mean, I mean, there's just too many things going on. Like you don't, even if you're, I mean, if you go talk to somebody that works at Best Buy or something, they didn't know when they were 5, they were going to be working at Best Buy. And they didn't
have some kind of inner magic capacity to be a Best Buy person.
Right. Their car, they watched a commercial that showed someone living this rugged, cool life off road. So, then they thought, well, that's me. That sort of speaks to me. So therefore I'm going to buy that truck or whatever. And by the way, all this stuff, I mean, it's funny when you sort of talk about it in the third person, but like you can't get away from this stuff. There's no, I don't, it doesn't seem like there's an alternative to being this way. And in fact, so authenticity is still pretty popular. However, like that's not really what hits anymore. That's not like, you're not going to find the top music artists, the top influencers or whatever are not going to be using that technology. That's basically like a technology of identity. That's we're sort of moving past that into this other thing called prophilicity. So there's still people that do that stuff, but it just doesn't hit like it used to.
Yeah, that makes sense. I got to check out that book.
Yeah, I think I do have one point though. There are some guidance counselors in school who probably gently like nudge kids into transitioning into like Geek Squad guys. So there probably is some of that going on.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard not to like sincerity as a mode because it feels like there's less bullshit involved. But I mean, ultimately these are, technologies of identity, and I don't know, there's nothing, it all feels a bit silly.
Yeah. I'm going to jump into kind of my broad review of the movie, kind of my take on the movie. I really, really like this movie.
That's great. Yeah, I wasn't sure because I don't know how I would feel about this movie if I wasn't love poker.
Yeah. So I had seen this, 5-10 years ago, sometime in the past. And I rewatched it a couple times recently. I think it's a very fun movie. It's got a great pace. Like I say, it's like a sports movie. You don't really need to know anything about poker to follow along. Certain things won't make sense. Like there are numerous scenes where I don't really know like why some game didn't go well or why some interaction didn't go well, but I know enough to know that it didn't. Before we got recording though, Degree Studies and I were talking about how this is kind of a good movie for a podcast because most of the time on this show, I'm usually talking about movies that I just flat out love. It's like I give it 9 or 10, 9 out of 10 or 10 out of 10. But this is a very good movie, a very fun movie, but that has some very bizarre things about it. Like I think there's plenty of weird stuff going on here. Just to hit on a few, I think they're kind of using like 1940s like noir music for some reason,
and narration, which I didn't remember from when I used to watch it.
Lots of narration. I think a lot of the dialogue is really goofy, but so it's kind of weird. I think it's Brian Koppelman and David Levine or something. The writing is like the dialogue is kind of bad, but there's lots of really good lines. Like it's almost like they wrote like a list of good lines, and they're like, we just got to find places in the movie for these good lines that we wrote, and we got to like write a movie around these ideas or something. But so a lot of the interactions and conversations are kind of weird, and then some of the performances are kind of Malkovich has one of the most bizarre attempts at a Russian accent that's like ever. I mean, maybe you have to go back to maybe some old Bond movies or something to find something that's kind of on this level. But,
can I comment on that?
I want you to. Can you try his accent?
I will splash the pot whenever I want. No, I don't even know. It was so bad.
This Sama Beach.
I can't reproduce it, but he says okay or okay in like the weirdest way. I think his performance meets the so bad it crosses back into good.
No, yeah. People always talk about his accent with this movie, and I remember I watched it as like, a teenager, an idiot teenager, and I was like, oh, it's fine. It sounds Russian, I guess. But I'm watching it this time. I'm like, oh, that is really bad. Like, I don't know what he's doing.
He had some woman who was a Russian actress. I can't remember who she was. I think she's someone who you might know, but he had her record all his lines on tape, and then he would walk around listening to it. And so everyone thought he was like really going to be prepared, and they got there to shoot. And it's like, he sat down with Matt Damon, and they keep doing it over and over. And they're like, can you try it differently or something? And Malkovich leans into Damon. He's like, I'm not a good actor. Like, people think I am, but I'm not.
That's great. I don't know. Maybe he's kind of got like that, like Bill Murray, you could put him in anything and just point the camera at him. Whatever he could do could be technically wrong or whatever, but he's just kind of like got that magnetic thing or whatever.
Yeah, I think it still works. It still works despite.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's like his natural charisma is overcoming what's ridiculous about. Like, it's such a big choice, and you have to be. I don't know. You have to have such like theatrical confidence to lean in to this degree that I think it's kind of. It's definitely enjoyable.
All right, Cool Frasier, I derailed you. I made you do the accent, but you were trying to make a point.
Oh no, just the accent was bad. I made the point.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I didn't realize how bad it was when I was younger, so it fooled me at least.
I mean, being a guy like that is how they end up making movies called Being John Malkovich. He's not really Teddy KGB. He's John Malkovich. I don't mean he's playing himself, but it's more
like a stage character than like trying to portray real life.
So regarding like the dialogue and stuff, there's one part where Matt Damon, is late for a meeting with his study group, and as he walks up, one of the girls is like, "Don't be obsequious" or something, and then the other girl is like, "Yeah, but you need to be deferential." It's like the worst fake study group conversation you could write. Like, it's just like, anyway, that was kind of the end of my thing. I think it's a very fun movie. I like to watch it. I've watched it numerous times, and I'll watch it again.
We mentioned the star caliber, but I feel like the actors, like, they're good actors. So like it's good despite like whatever flaws there may be underlying it.
Well, yeah, granted, what you said, like, that it's sort of like a series of lines, like, there are really good lines in the movie. Like, there's a lot of them that really work. But I do think the script is kind of like, I think Koppelman was trying to make, it's almost like he thought every other line of dialogue had to be a zinger. Whereas I think, or like a really memorable line. And I think you want to actually pace that stuff out. And I don't recommend this, and this is like a lame reason to like turn on a movie. But, I heard Brian Koppelman a couple times on the Bill Simmons podcast, like back in the early 2000s. And he really comes off as like a try-hard, like thinks he's very cool, like probably wears too much jewelry as like an overly tan 60-year-old screenwriter or whatever. And like that sort of reframed how I saw it. Like, there are things in this movie that I maybe would have not even noticed. Like, Damon tells the story of how he met Worm, and he's like, "We were the only two kids at this at this boarding school who didn't have a trust fund," and he's like, "I got in because my dad was the head janitor." It's like, I don't think the janitor's kids go to like Eton Academy or whatever. I mean, I wouldn't. Yeah, I wouldn't know. I mean, maybe that's happened, but it seemed like such a. And again, this is like my negative opinion of Koppelman, but it's like a rich guy's idea of a scrappy kid. And there's a bunch of things in the movie that sort of read like that.
I mean, movies in general are just so unfair to wasps, and I mean wasps in like the the old I don't just mean white Anglo-Saxon Protestant, but actual WASP, and I don't know if Matt Damon is one, but he certainly looks like one. They have him dressed like one for the movie. Maybe he's just supposed to be because he's in law school and stuff like that. I don't know. And of course, they showed all the people in law school. They're just so they're so goofy and stuff. But yeah. And by the way, first off, all the whoever did this, they read a bunch of poker books because they got all the great sort of rules of thumb, which I think rules of thumb are super important. That's one of the best. The guy who wrote about the Black Swan events,
Taleb, yeah,
it's something. That's one of the good.
Paul Scalise.
Yeah, one of the good things that Taleb has done is sort of promote the idea that most of civilization is built not through education but through rules of thumb. I don't know if he's ever said that specifically, but he's talked about this kind of thing a lot. And these rules of thumb are super important. And it's not like people think about those phrases all the time. You have to when you play poker. Stuff like you can only shear sheep. You can shear a sheep many times, but you can skin him. Skin him once. You can only lose what you put in the middle. All this kind of stuff. I mean, that's kind of that sort of frame your thought. They use that stuff.
You know what they do? You know what Koppelman did? Koppelman and Levine, they partnered with this guy, Joey Bagels or something like that, Joel Bagels. And you might know who he is, Bog, but he was a rounder himself in New York. And the character of Knish is based on him. Knish is also a bakery item. But and so they went with this guy and they hung out with him for, I think, a couple weeks or something, followed him around to games. He taught him how to play. He taught him the ins and outs of how all this stuff works. And then they wrote him into the script as Knish. Then and even some of the lines he gave them were used. I think in
the poker game of life, women are the rake. That is a really good line.
What about are we going to bring up the Norm Macdonald connection?
I wasn't aware of it. Go.
You don't know this?
I don't think so. Go. Maybe I do, but
no. So apparently, there's articles about it, and then there's an interview on Howard Stern where Artie Lang confirms it, but Norm doesn't. But basically, Koppelman was somewhat related to SNL in some way, and was kind of a fan of Norm's, and so Norm would go to these house games because he was a poker player and a gambling addict, famously.
Yeah. Till the day he died, I think he was losing all his money.
Yeah. So basically, Artie Lang basically says he based the movie on Norm, and so The Rounders is technically a loose biopic of Norm.
Worm is based on Norm.
I don't know if it's Worm or McD or kind of a combination of both, but yeah, Norm was kind of his he kind of looked up to Norm, who was on SNL at the time, and he would was kind of following him around as well.
One thing I wanted to say, Grant, just because we're talking about, I was being a little critical. There are some moments in this movie that are really awesome, and I do think it's very enjoyable overall. But I think one of my favorite moments, just in terms of Worm and his addiction, is when they go back to Mike McDee's apartment and Joe has left, taken all their stuff, and it's empty. And of course it's Worm's fault, right? And I guess I'm thinking of this because Bog just quoted the line that Worm says in this, where he's he's like, she had you domesticated and she still ran out on you. In the poker game of life, women are the rake. And I think it's really funny that in a million other movies, this would have been some breaking point between the two characters because, Worm has now cost Mike this relationship, and a relationship that was sort of part of his attempt to be in law school and to go to the straight life. And instead of that big confrontation, Damon, Mike McD, is just kind of like laughs and is like, all right, let's go play some fucking cards. And it's like, I feel like that yeah, I feel like that's very true to life, where like if you have like a fuck up friend that like really costs you something, like it is very real in that moment to be like, well, let's go get more drunk because like, you know, we're pot committed at this point. Like we've fucked up, so we might as well lean in.
Yeah, we should on these podcasts we always talk about the wives or girlfriends in the movies and whether or not we like them. And I was like, man, this girlfriend is not at all supportive. But maybe she's good. I don't know.
She does a good job. Gretchen Mol plays a really good nag. She's a big time downer.
Yeah, it's like, come on, let him play. He's good at it.
Right, and it's the very advanced form of nag where like it's almost meta nagging, where she won't directly anymore be like, you shouldn't play cards. It's more about like, you promised to yourself that you wouldn't do this. You know, it's like distancing themselves from the like desire for him to live a different way. It's like, we agreed that you weren't like this anymore.
The worst thing that she does.
Somebody with a Jewish mother wrote her character.
The worst thing that she does in the whole movie is after he goes and he impresses like those. I think it's like a gathering of like professors and district attorneys and judges or something, and he impresses them with his card reading abilities. And then he gets home and he tells her, he's like, hey, I really impressed these guys, and one of them might even give me a clerkship or something. And she's like, but you're doing it the wrong way. That's not the right way to get ahead in life. It's like, that's absolutely the right way to get ahead in life. Like,
yeah,
if you can impress the old timers who control everything, like it doesn't matter if it's golf, if it's, you know, if it's you're a good quarterback and they think you're cool, if it's poker, it's whatever. That's your way in. You just take your way in.
Well, yeah, she also brought up like, she's like, you don't want to be one of those lawyers who like the firm just keeps around because you're really good at golf or whatever. And like, my impression is there are guys who are like former college athletes who sort of get a chance in a lot of industries where like charisma is important, whether it's like sales or whatever. But it's like, usually they're actually good. It's not like the people I've known like that, the reason they have a sort of foot in the door is because the skills in some way overlap. It's not like, oh, like Ken Dorsey is the worst salesman, but we just love having him around to reminisce about Miami football. Like, I don't think that's how it works.
No, it's cool. I mean, plus, I mean, it's not like they were going to work for like the Red Cross or something. They were going to be freaking attorneys, which is just literally all about this kind of charisma and charming people and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean that was all ridiculous. And yeah, that's so I worked for a guy that was independently wealthy, owned a bunch of restaurants and stuff, and he kind of got his foot in the door at one of the, whether they say big four accounting firms, because he was a college athlete. And the thing about the college athlete thing and those guys like that hanging out, chopping it up at the golf course and stuff, which is a huge, I mean, it's in certain kinds of careers. I like to read about the mafia a lot. And this is definitely like, you can see a different trajectory for different guys in the mafia who are just able to, it's a certain kind of thing. There are people that are highly successful and charismatic that are more good in like small groups or person to person, but there's a certain type of thing of being super charismatic in larger groups. You'll see people in the military. This is like, this has almost been studied in the military, like guys who do well in things like special forces or these kinds of guys. It's certain type of jock guy, but it's not like, oh, he's the best player or whatever, but there's a certain type of masculine guy that's able to, I don't know, sort of give people a certain feeling. And it's not like they're bullying other people, but I mean, people enjoy being around them in large groups or something. It's just a huge thing.
Yeah, there's, I've worked at some big companies, white collar environments, and there's a lot of guys who climb the ranks. Just, they were a good hang on the golf course, and they were good, and and people who had seniority to them like to be around them, like to play golf with them, like to challenge them or whatever. And that was like how they climbed. And it's just,
especially as a young guy, because older guys, I mean, they'll just look at you as you're nothing unless you have one of these things. I knew a guy that sort of did this, and he was able to sort of hang and be with people that were older, more successful, because he was a great kicker. Yeah, he, kicking field goals and stuff like that. But he could tell them stories, blah blah blah. They like being around him. I mean, people don't know how much like. I mean, I guess things are probably different now. The average rich guy is probably a different experience than it was maybe in the 90s or 2000s or whatever. Where now, maybe there's more like computer rich guys. Although I think the classic rich successful guys probably sort of worm their way into that into the computer business more so, but they have a different life. Like, so that guy I knew, I mean, this guy was just a classic one of these guys. He was a college football player. He got his way into that, but then he was the same thing as he got older. He would like, if one of these younger guys that was like him that was around, they could hang and they were probably going to get these good positions and stuff like that. They, like, here's an example. So like a huge amount of his money would go, and this is not uncommon, especially in the South. They will pay huge amounts of money to their alma mater, essentially for the service of kind of getting to hang more though with the ball players, and the coach will call them, they're these boosters. I don't know if people heard of this.
Yeah, booster. Yeah.
The coach will call them occasionally and be like, "Hey, we got this kid. He's playing ball at in Orlando. Man, he's great. You should see the arm on him." And just sort of that feeling they get from that sort of male camaraderie. They'll give them millions.
Well, these older guys too, they all, when you get to a certain age and you have all the money, you just start to worship your youth, and they want to be around these young guys. It makes them feel young and vital again. Yeah.
Not guys like Worm.
I mean, we got here talking about the girlfriend, and my last thing to say, I think her performance is very good. It's kind of an annoying performance, but that's what she's supposed to do. And a question about her, that she's got this, like, she's got such a kind of like a doll face. Like,
she's the girl that you want to introduce to your parents.
Did they put girls like her in movies anymore? I don't know. I mean, I don't know if I've seen quite her thing for a while.
Yeah, she's a more sweetie pie version of the girl that was in Chasing Amy.
Yeah,
she has a unique look.
Yeah, that was Joey Lauren Adams in Chasing Amy. So what was her name?
In this movie, it's Gretchen Mol.
Yeah, I mean, she looks like, oh man, half the like 90s female country singers and stuff. I mean,
yeah.
Just a sweetie pie.
So our verdict is a sweetie pie, but also an annoying nag.
Now Petra is the opposite. Petra is she's like what, 6'2" or 6'1" or something, maybe 5'11". Femme fatale. I mean, she doesn't play a femme fatale in the movie, but gosh.
But she lived in a masculine environment, right? She's like she's kind of she manages a card room, right?
Yeah, she's around. I mean, there's definitely women like that. They definitely exist. They sort of getting by in the men's world. So, I mean, what's funny in poker, the way this works is there's a lot of like very good female poker pros. I mean, none of them have really like succeeded at top level. It's what's weird about poker is that there are a significant amount of people that are quote unquote poker pros, that they have they're famous. You can look them up on the websites and stuff. And they're not, what they're doing is they play lots of tournaments. These people could never survive playing cash games and stuff like that. A lot of these are the sort of some of the better looking people. They're kind of hanging out, playing poker. A lot of them, they had, some money from something else. They enjoy getting to be a poker pro, living the poker life. The thing about anyways, these people, a lot of them, they mostly play tournaments. But the thing about, there are women that are very good poker players, and what many of them do is first off, they have access to these guys, and they'll date these guys and learn what they know, and then date the next one and they'll learn what they know. And they have that's a very unique opportunity.
Is it like, I feel like there's some analogs here to chess. Is it like, because I think there's like never been a woman in the top 100 or something of chess, or maybe that's not true, but I've heard that. Is it like that? Is the disparity that big? Like there's not any females that are like really in the top echelons of the game?
Well, the beauty of poker is that for 99% of people, they can't tell. They just know that, that's a poker pro and that's a poker pro. They have a certain amount of winnings and stuff. However, if you're good and you really know what's up, you could sort of like, there are people that consistently win at sort of high-end cash games and stuff like that. We know that they are a really good poker player. With tournament players, who knows? By the way, you could win the World Series of Poker, the main event, and not be a great poker player, because that's the beauty. The beauty of poker is that if you're playing chess, I can't beat a chess grandmaster if I'm a normal person. It's impossible. So I would never play them. Not in poker. I can win. Against an average person could beat the best player in the world. You can take a hand off him and stuff. That's what gets you to play.
Do you think that undermines Matt Damon's whole little anecdote he tells Kanish about Johnny Chen? I successfully bluffed him in one hand. Is that sort of thing wouldn't actually be that meaningful in poker, because to get one hand off a champion, anyone could do that under the right circumstances? Well,
they certainly could. However, now the game, there was a lot people. Well, we'll just say, so he talks about how successful Johnny Chan was, and consistently successful. And yeah, that's true. Johnny Chan, especially at the time he was playing or whatever, was definitely a super winning player. A top level player. His record was crazy. He's not certainly the best or anything like that. But he was maybe at the time he played. It's been a while since I know, but so there are definitely people that do win consistently, especially at a high level, where that's crazy. You look at Johnny Chan's wins in the World Series of Poker, and during the times where he was active. It's absurd. He could have got lucky once or twice, but not that many times.
About 10 years before the movie came out, he had won the World Series 2 years in a row, which
it's absurd.
I was just scrolling through the thing. I don't think since then, that was 88 and 89. I don't think since 89 anyone's won 2 years in a row.
That would be, that'd be crazy.
Yeah, and then in the circumstances of the movie, the hand he won where he straight bluffed into him is kind of impressive. But at the same time, one hand, technically, you could always take one hand off of anyone. Because who knows, they might just not want to risk it or whatever.
I took $5,000 off David Williams, and who was he was a guy that he was a pro. He's a legit pro. He was a pro that transitioned from Magic the Gathering to poker, which is
let's go.
Which has happened several times.
Like we were saying, this is a cool guy's game.
Exactly.
Yeah, definitely not cool. Yeah.
He flopped the Black Lotus.
Yeah. Which, by the way, and when you look at Magic from poker, so I don't know, the top level Magic players, in the main format they play, people don't make their own decks. There's 7 or 8 decks at a time that people can choose and play or whatever. They kind of know how many. What you look at when you see Magic from poker is you're like, my God, A, how easy it would be to cheat, but B, there's just rampant cheating because it would just be so easy. Which, by the way, I mean, if you play sort of these small stakes, gangsterish games and stuff like that, I mean, you will see people cheat. You'll see teams. Last one I saw, I remember it because I saw it like as soon as I noticed it, I got up and found another game. But there's 2 guys sitting across the table, and one of the guys had a D20 like from Dungeons and Dragons, right? And he would act like it was a token that he would just fumble around with his hands and sort of do like that. But as I got to watch him, he was clearly signaling the other guy with the D20 that they must have had a code of whatever the D20 said. And how that works is basically, I'm going to tell you that I've got a good hand. You're sitting across the table. You're going to start raising the pot up for me. So you'll put in a small raise, so get that pot cooking. So I'm going to take the hand down.
Another thing that's sort of unique and great about this movie is that Worm keeps making these impassioned defenses of cheating, which I think are like really interesting and fun. Where again, in another movie, a lesser movie, I think they would have that character being like, "You're right, Mike. Like cheating is bad, but I'm just not as good a player as you. So like this is what I have to do." But no, he's like, I think it is righteous to cheat stupid people. And like, I don't care what you think of it. Well, and that's a pretty unique thing.
It's hard to say that that it's not when you sort of think in the way that poker works. Now now we're sort of talking about different things because people will beat your ass. People will do stuff. There were a couple times where I cashed out at a local card room, and I was scared walking to my car. I was a young guy. I didn't have a gun on me or nothing. And one of the things about the criminal, so people like Worm in real life create opportunities for like actual criminals who do crime for a job. They are opportunity makers. But yeah, and I'm sorry to take this off a slightly different direction, but what's interesting is sometimes this doesn't happen a lot. So like usually the very best poker players are people like Mike McD. They're people that have a lot of self-control. They don't go on tilt, which is like that would be like, once again, go back to the food analogy where sort of anyone, even if you're not an addict, you can still sort of dip your toes in what that feels like just by like, oh, I had an extra slice of pie or something like that. Well, like you could take half your bankroll, set it on the table, and now you would be behaving like a gambling addict. Basically, you would start getting hot. You would start feeling that thing. Well, you could get pissed off and let's say going on tilt. But the people that are actually got the right mindset for poker, they don't do that. And generally 99% of the time, the best players in the world, the only way you can stay at the top is have that great mindset. Phil Hellmuth is another one. You can just tell by watch Phil Hellmuth, watch the way he talks, the way he carries himself. This is a guy that's in complete control over himself, which, by the way, that's the most important skill. But sometimes there's been a couple of times where there's nothing that says people like Worm can't be really good at poker. Probably the first really like obscenely talented guy in professional poker in America was Stu Unger. I think there's a movie about him. There should be. I mean, he's a super interesting guy. But Stu Unger was, definitely a troubled person, but was just absurdly good. At the time of the height of poker being popular, there was a guy named Mike Matusow who was clearly a worm. I mean, clearly a gambling addict. He had been, in and out of Gamblers Anonymous since he was a kid. I mean, he was stealing money and borrowing money and running up huge debts when he was a child. I mean, this is someone that was like, yeah.
I just looked it up. There's a 2003 High Roller, the Stu Unger story, starring, who is this? It's Michael Imperioli. Yeah, it's Christopher from Sopranos.
Yeah, Stu Unger, super interesting guy. I mean, he was kind of next level, but he was a troubled guy. Which,
by the way, on the Sopranos thing, that leads me to Grandma, the character Grandma. Grandma was up for the role of Tony Soprano. It was down to him and Gandolfini, which I think they made the right choice with Gandolfini because as I'm watching Rounders, Grandma always feels very small. And he has like a theater kid thing going on. Like he's like a theater kid trying to be a mob boss or something. And I don't know if this is clear to you guys. I watched the movie twice in the last week, and I must have missed this. He's a pimp in the movie, I guess.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a lot of guys like him. He was just a criminal. I mean, these guys, they loan shark. They usually they're into gambling, selling football cards, stuff like that. They just do stuff.
Yeah, I didn't get is his nickname Grandma or like Grandma?
I just assumed it was Grandma, like
because they were sort of saying it like grandma, like gramophone or something, but
that would be a very like on the money mob guy name, by the way.
Grama. So it's probably like a truncated version of his whatever his real name would have been in the movie or something.
Yeah, it's like Leonardo Grammacotti or something.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, it was Grandma. They called him Grandma.
I never really buy his character because he, like I say, he just looks too small. He's like Matt Damon's not particularly tall,
and he does kind of seem outmatched by Damon and Norton and the others.
Yeah, he doesn't bring the same energy, and then they put him in all these little gay outfits. I don't know what that's about. He's always
I thought
wearing silk or something.
I thought some of those. Yeah, I thought some of those scenes were really good. Like I haven't been in exactly similar situations, but like the dynamic they capture really well is like if you have a friend who's in trouble, but like you're not a criminal and you go to the drug dealer or something and you're like, all right, I'm here now. I'm a tax-paying citizen. I'm going to like help my low-life friend out. So like you don't have to treat me like you treat all these scumbags you deal with. Like I have a name and address, so like we can speak like adults. And they sort of give you this look like, okay, but you're here now, so like I will still kill you too.
Yeah.
So like I thought that whole dynamic what seemed very true to life, that Damon would sort of be like, okay, you know me, I'm a solid guy, you don't have to threaten me like you would threaten Worm. And the guy's kind of being like, yeah, okay, you get a little leadway, but like, you know, the rules are the same for everybody ultimately.
Yeah, you made a mistake.
Yeah, and a little of that is, I mean, feels past its time. I mean, so a lot of that, so that would definitely go on in like the 70s and stuff. In the 90s, if someone like that came to somebody like that, I would be thinking, well, this guy's just going to go to the police or something. Whereas like, a huge part of the criminal underworld or whatever. So, I mean, when I played a lot of poker, you'd know guys that do stuff that are involved in this kind of stuff. And there are guys like Grandma in real life. There are people that usually they got into crime through family, stuff like that. And so a lot of them, they don't really have these sort of personal problems themselves. They just sort of learn to use them as bank accounts. And and the thing about like, I don't know, okay, so people that are involved in crime, they aren't under the protection of the police. They weren't generally. Now, it's kind of weird because of course you can rat. Now the problem with ratting is not just like, well, you just tell them the name of one person. You're going to have to like start basically working for the police. You're going to have to give them lots of people, or they'll just haul your ass to jail. So that's not as easy. It's not as easy as it sounds. But like a huge part of that criminal world is that once you're playing in criminal stuff, you're free to be robbed, stolen, extorted, and that's what they do. Now, if you're dealing with somebody like Worm, you could definitely treat him like that because he can't go to the police because he's dirty. Now, somebody like Mike, well, I don't know if you can do business with him because he's in law school. He can just go to the cops.
His buddies with a law professor.
Yeah.
So speaking of the diverse cast, and so people have brought up the Jewishness of this film. I do think like it comes through. There's a lot of like Jewish things going on, and it made me think of Uncut Gems and the Safdie brother movies.
Yeah, it reminded me of the Safdies as well.
Yeah, and I'm like, man, I wonder if they remade Rounders, like, and the Safdie brothers did it, and it was just like a Jewish guy running around doing all the same stuff. Like, it would probably read more true to life and more accurate and kind of more interesting as well. Like, I would want them to remake the film if anybody was going to do it.
But the protagonist of Uncut Gems is Worm, right? Like, that's why it's a dirtier, more fun movie.
They could certainly capture more of the stress, because this movie has some stressful moments, but it never really feels like that Mike or Worm are ever really going to have to pay for their sins. But the Safdies could probably amp that up.
But if they did redo it, I would say they should recast Joe with Zazie Beetz.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, and I think in the Safdie brothers movie, Mike goes back to the table, he loses, there's no goofy Oreo tell, and then Mike just gets shot in the head, and Worm runs to Venezuela.
Yeah, for sure, it would be a darker film, but
yeah,
or they could make it a more exciting one too. I don't know.
Darker film? You mean because they're replacing actresses with darker skinned actresses?
Sure.
Part of the, I could see that. Of course, I think you said the movie was written by Jewish guys. However, even if it wasn't, I could see leaning into that just because you landed Martin Landau.
Yeah.
One of the bizarre lines he says, like, what we learned at yeshiva is that, you just do what your destiny was. That does not feel to me like a Jewish maxim.
What we learned at yeshiva was be yourself.
Yeah, if you ever known any, and the way that they're raised and their parenting style, that does not feel like a Jewish maxim.
The first rule of yeshiva is have fun.
Yeah.
But he does say that his parents essentially disowned him for the dishonorable career choice of law professor.
Right.
Yeah. That's a bad look. Yeah.
Well, I thought his thing was funny too, because he's like, I was studying the Talmud, and I didn't see God in the Talmud, but where I did see God was in the American Constitution, I guess.
Yeah.
So I came to America and became
the U.S. Constitution, and then the national anthem started playing, and he was saluting the flag.
Yeah.
That's a nightmare 13-year-old who figures out they're like, no, it's the intricacies of law that dominate my imagination.
That is where God can be found, in jurisprudence.
Well, there's a lot of, I've heard people theorize this. One of the reasons that Jews are so prominent in law is that the religion is very legalistic. This I didn't hit the light switch. The light switch comes on by itself on the Sabbath or whatever.
Right. They have lights that they just cover with a cover, so that way they can just take the light off, but they're not mechanically turning it on or off.
They have infrared lights and stuff.
And the women wear wigs over their hair because they're not allowed to show their hair, but if they show different hair, it's okay.
Yeah. It's all you want someone that thinks like this. Your tax attorney.
There was something we were about to touch on I want degree studies to Mike McD and Worm get back to his apartment. His little blonde girlfriend has left, and that's when Mike McD does the line about the women are the rake. But then Degree Studies, I think it's like in the next scene or around this time, Famke Janssen comes over, and what happens there?
Well, yeah, so she's there to tell him that Worm has worked up a debt at the club in Mike's name, like basically borrowed money in Mike's name, so now Mike's on the hook for it. And she sort of indicates, like, she says, "Oh, I haven't been in your place in a while." Like, I guess we're led to believe she used to be over there a lot. And then she kisses him and says, "I can stay." And Mike sort of withdraws and she leaves. And then he throws, I don't know, a glass or something against the wall. I didn't get if we were supposed to think like he's still hung up on Joe or it's just too stressful to do this right now. But I was sort of outraged by this decision.
Yeah,
Well,
how old was he when when this played? I'm sorry, but
like mid-20s, I think.
Well, it doesn't even matter. That comes over, and you're that age. Sorry.
Well, and
we need to do a poll, and I feel like there's some kind of like body count poll we could do of would you pick Joe or Petra?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to lose. I already don't have much cred, but I would lose what remaining cred I have with the Trad Cats, and I'd be like, body count doesn't matter. Petra over Joe every day of the week and twice on Sunday.
it looks like he was 27 when they filmed it. But even Damon, I heard an interview with him. Even he thought that was a kind of a dumb scene because he's like no guy is doing that.
Well, what do you think it's supposed to mean in the text of the film? Like, just that he's not over Joe?
I guess, or that he's like. I mean, maybe it's just another indication of his, self-control or something.
Yeah, maybe they couldn't afford to see her. The thing is, like, I can see that if you're like, well, we just want this to be kind of a sports movie. We don't want that kind of stuff in this movie. But you showed tits in this movie. Yeah,
they throw in a very unnecessary strip club scene. Camera pans across like these girls dancing. Like, wait a minute, it doesn't fit the tone really of the rest of the movie.
Or I don't know. I watch movies on Sundays, and usually martial arts films, action movies from the 80s, stuff like that. And like every single action movie from the 80s has to throw in a strip club scene with a couple boobs in it.
I think just every movie in the 80s. Like I remember, like teen movies and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. I remember Kevin Smith said that like he did that in Mallrats as like an homage to like the 80s. That like that was out of fashion already by then, and that was like early 90s, I guess.
That's what he told people around him. No, we got to do this for the homage. This is art.
Yeah.
Always doing it for the homage. That's what you can tell your Tradcath friends, Degree Studies.
Okay, good note.
Say it was just an homage.
Petra's supposed to be Russian too, right?
Yeah.
Her accent's not as bad, but it's also not good.
Yeah, I don't think this is the best accent movie.
Yeah, I don't know who that. Yeah, if they had
Jewish accents,
vocal coaches or whatever. Well, Martin Landau's just doing his normal voice.
Oh, is that right?
I think so. Yeah, I think one of you already kind of said this, but I think Turturro kind of wins the performance. He's the kind of, to me, I think he's the best performance in the movie. He's the only one that seems like he's in like his performance almost feels like it's in some sort of like Oscar bait film, like or like just kind of a better movie, I guess. But I don't know what you guys thought. I think he did great.
Yeah, he was great in it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And in the poker world, obviously a lot of these phrases and characters sort of have stuck with it. People use them sort of ironically and stuff, like splashing the pot and stuff. But really, the only character that people still think of, and sort of, I don't know about today, but I'm sure still, but because even well past the movie was made, the main character that sort of sticks out in people's mind is definitely Joey Knish.
Mm. Yeah, and he's got my kind of favorite line in the movie is I think he says my kids eat. I think that's the best line.
Yeah. I mean,
yeah, and I think what's going back to Bog's original question, like, is this movie enjoyable for people who don't know a lot about poker? I actually think like all intense subculture movies are really interesting. Like when you feel like you're getting a real taste of a world that you don't know much about, that's fun. And like Knish seems like sort of the realist character. Like Worm is sort of like an archetypal shithead, and Mike McD is like a hero on the hero's journey. But Knish is the one you come away with being like, even if you're like me, you're fairly ignorant of the world. You're like, I bet there are people like that around the world of poker.
Well, that's absolutely right. So, I mean, in real life, there's like an actual poker pro is Joey Knish. You call them a grinder. That's they use that phrase in the film, but they use it kind of strangely or not strangely, but they say it like it's almost a personality type. In real life, all the great poker players, they're grinders. The phrase means you're grinding your ass to see. I think they say that in the film. I'm not sure, but it's poker's not like, if you're good and you play this for a living, it's not exciting. You sit down for many hours at a time, and it's not fun either. It's not fun. You're sort of thinking all this stuff, and you're not playing with one of the ways that you sort of control your emotions is you play with a small amount of your money. It's a grind. You're grinding out money. Yeah. Joey Knish is the real guy. I
was wondering, Bog, in the movie they talk quite a bit about like doing these long runs. I think like Mike McD and Worm play, I think they say 64 hours at one point. I don't know. Did you ever do like one of these marathons of multi-day or anything like that?
Well, I don't know what it is about poker, but it definitely does work like that. You'll see, I mean, you definitely play for long sets of time. You'll go to the casino, you'll play for 8 to 10 hours, and it's usually with people. I mean, you have people that you go with, and you're sort of living the life together. You go get food together and stuff, and you play for long hours. Then you play at home. You'll play at home or wherever the guy's house or casino, hotel room, a poker online. Then you're back at casino. I don't know what it is about it, but it's definitely the lifestyle is focused around 64 hours, a long time, but I'd say like, 18, 24 hours, then you crash for a while and you get up and you're just sort of in this haze. I don't know.
Yeah. Like kind of like gamers or something.
Well, I have a question similar to would non-poker players enjoy it, which is would Zoomers enjoy it, which is kind of a recurring question on this podcast.
Yeah. Would someone under 25 like this movie?
And my thought is I think they might, because I feel like there were a lot of these kind of movies when we were growing up of like cool guys doing cool guy stuff, and I feel like there's not a lot of that now. So maybe they would enjoy it like a Zoomer guy.
Yeah. By the way, I mean, so the main thing that sustains professional poker, especially so in the old days, the reason why you could be a professional poker player is because everyone was terrible. A few people, I mean, I don't think it was easy to get a hold of these books like Dual Brunson's Super System and stuff like that. By the way, all these books that sort of the Bibles of this thing. Like I always tell people, like the way I think about politics, it comes from David Sklansky. Like because my mind was molded by these poker books. That's where my mind thinks. I like at the same time period where people usually were reading stuff like, or if you're into politics a lot, there's usually when people are young, they're bigger in reading, Nietzsche or Marx or something like that. I was reading David Sklansky, everything all the time, over and over again. This is how my brain works. This is, by the way, sort of how I got into sort of thinking about politics outside of just like, oh, I like this politician, I like that politician. Because the main book that got me sort of thinking about politics specifically was written by this professor. I think he was a stats professor or a game theory professor, but he was a guy that got into politics because he thought it was a soft. This was when these online betting markets for politics were opening up. Right. So I can't think of the names of these things. And so he figured, like, because you're always looking for soft bets, right? You always, like, if you were going to, anyways, you're just looking for places where there's like soft money, people that don't really know what they're doing. And so he wanted to come up with like a systematic way to think about politics so he could win money betting on politics. That's Bruce Bueno de Mesquita. So that's where all his stuff come from. So like his first books about politics are just guides on how to think and analyze politics in a way to bet money and win cash on it. So yeah, so that's how my mind thinks and how it goes to politics. It all comes from poker. But sorry, what I want to say is so back in the old days, the games were soft. It was hard to even know what was good, blah, blah, blah. Then that sort of goes on for a long time. And then you have this sort of online poker boom. You could just sort of go online, order these books, and the books don't just make you good or whatever, but they sort of give you a framework to sort of make you into a great player. There are lots of great players in that time period. The problem, I mean, the thing now, so online poker holds up the poker world. So even these guys are playing casinos, playing big tournaments and stuff. You can look at their shirts, look at their jackets. They have the name of their online poker room on there. Online poker maintains it. There is a real danger that, and I mean, I don't see any reason why it won't, that online poker is going to die because of AI. Because there are some people that I'm not an AI expert, but I've heard people that are I think they're definitely wrong that think that AI can't. So the thing that makes poker different from things like chess and stuff is poker is incomplete information, right? So, from what I understand, that's not a problem for AI.
Well, we have an AI expert here, Cool Frasier. You know quite a bit about this stuff.
Oh yeah, I mean, people have already been doing it. I think the problem is there's certain soft elements that aren't part of the like, whereas like with blackjack and stuff, you can like calculate the exact odds of everything. With poker, like to a certain extent, those odds don't matter because you can like bluff. But in online poker, you could potentially optimize a model that would like be able to predict the behavior of the people you're playing against and what bet amount would optimally skew in your favor, right?
Yeah,
I mean, it definitely could. The only problem is, I know there's a couple models out there that have been built that can play poker, but I don't know if they're to that level of sophistication yet. But definitely, we're getting closer.
Well, I can tell you, from when you like, it definitely seems like a game that could be beaten by AI when you think about it, like a pro poker player. So if you was to look at any pro poker player when they play online, they have these programs that run alongside them where
that calculate the odds.
Well, I mean, not so much that the odds, but especially in a game like Texas Hold'em, whatever, and it gets more difficult as you start getting playing like Omaha and stuff like that. But so the thing it'll have stats by each guy's name, and it's just the hands that you've seen them with. But I mean, so if I've been playing with you for 2 or 3 hours, it'll have a number up there that says you'll see, like, if it says you see like 15% of hands, right? So now I know that if we're playing sitting down with 8 people and you raise in the first position, I know you have aces or kings. I know that. Right. Because the only way that you could sort of play in a winning player, what's going on. You have to have those cards. And when you bluff, there's the whole thing about David Sklansky's books, or just the way you think about pro poker in general, is expected value. I mean, a bluff is mathematically, right, or it's not. One of the biggest misconception about poker is that like reading people is a huge part of the game. It's not. You read people based on their bets. You could, we're told that the problem with reading people is that things can mean anything. I mean, they can mean anything. What really tells you what somebody is thinking is what they bet and how they play. What percent of hands, what percent of flops that you see, etc. That's the information you go by. You don't go by the guy scratching his nuts or whatever.
In the movie, I'm a little confused as to KGB's tell. Like, it just is the cookie, like just opening the cookie, or is it something?
I think it was if he doesn't open the cookie, if he opens the cookie right where the cream stays on both sides, he's confident. He really has the stuff.
So I thought, I mean, this might just prove I know nothing about poker, but I thought it was the first time when Mike bullied him into folding by re-raising, he had broken the cookie apart but didn't eat it. And then later, when he actually had the hand, he broke the cookie apart and ate it.
Oh, that's probably right. Yeah. And plus, the last time he broke... Well, anyways, the last time he broke the cookie, the cream stayed on one side. Probably did that every time. I don't eat Oreos. And he had the nuts, and Mike laid it down. That's the hardest thing to do in poker. The worst thing that can happen to you. Now, if you play professionally, this happens all the time, right? So, but the worst thing that can happen is if you get a second best hand, and like how hard it is to figure out that you have the second best hand and you need to fold it. I mean, great players do it. You gotta really know what you're doing to fold something that's really good but second best. I mean, especially it happens. People have done it, but like in a heads up game with only two people, if you were to laying down a great hand, I mean, that is very hard. That's the most difficult problem in poker is not only getting a second best hand and having to fold it, but like if you're doing it heads up, that guy can have anything. It would be very difficult to do that in real life.
Well, yeah, I think that's a great point about the psychological dynamics. And one thing I wanted to ask you, Bog, because again, I don't know that much about poker, but it seemed to me like the last hand that KGB, as a good player, should know that he could have hit the straight just off his first two cards, and that like him being so convinced that he was waiting to hit like his second straight card on the turn or the river or whatever you call it. Like it just seems like he never considers, I guess it's based because Mike checked and didn't raise. He's like fully bought in that he couldn't have had the straight from the flop. But that just seemed to me like something that a good poker player wouldn't assume.
Yeah, and the hand on the table was like 7, 8, 10, I think.
Yeah,
and Teddy KGB Malkovich says, you're on a draw. Well, what's he drawing? What hand could he have and be draw? I mean, I didn't understand that.
We got some of our guests are coming up on their time limits. So I'm going to do a quick run of a few things that I want to get some takes on, and then we'll wrap it up. So I wanted to talk, we didn't really address Norton's role specifically. I mean, we've talked about him a bunch, but curious you guys' take on his performance. My main thing is just that there's a lot going on here that seems to also appear in American History X. His characters in both movies seem to have a lot in common. That's kind of my main thing for him, but any other takes on what he's doing?
Yeah, I thought he's great, and his contrast with Damon is great. Like, Damon always sort of annoys me, especially as like Golden Boy characters, but I think he's a good actor, and I think they're a really good duo in this.
My Zoomer recommendation is watch Primal Fear.
Oh yeah, and hey, I think he did that right before this. Well, actually, that's the Damon thing about being the Golden Boy. That was my thing for him, is that it's like this is just kind of an extension of the Good Will Hunting character, where when he goes to that game with all the professors and stuff, he's like He's just doing the scene again from Good Will Hunting where he's like,
but he's the janitor's son, not the janitor this time.
yeah, but he's just doing the like how you like them apples, except it's just like
yeah. Remember when he beat KGB at the end and he held up the cards and he's like, I had the nuts. How do you like them apples?
yeah.
No, and it's an interesting counterpoint that in Good Will Hunting, being authentic and like leaning into being a smart guy comes with going back to get the prim and proper, respectable girl. But in this movie, being who you are and leaning into poker means leaving behind the prim and proper. I sort of think this is better. Like, I think there's something, in terms of narrative, it's powerful, I think, to say that, like, to embrace your destiny, you might have to break your own heart or like abandon an important love. I think that's a good, though I guess in Good Will Hunting the equivalent is like he leaves behind his friends who he cares very much about.
Yeah. Let me speed run a few things. I'll read off some things and you guys jump in on any of them that are interesting to you. I don't know if you guys caught the Taj Mahal where they go. I think I assume Atlantic City, but it's got a big Trump sign on it. I don't know if future versions of the film will have that digitally removed or something. And then I don't know if you guys caught the gratuitous Jeep Grand Cherokee Sport Edition.
Oh yeah, I did. I was like, is that a nice car?
Yeah, Worm's like, great car, and I think it's just like framed exactly like a car commercial.
Well, I think it's a fun car, right? Isn't that aren't Jeeps fun to drive?
He says something like living large or something like that. He's
like it's an especially nice car, and I'm like it was a nice model, right? But I think that was like the 91 model year or whatever, like 88 model year.
That was an old
design,
I figured it was just straight product promotion and it was a new one.
Well, Bog, in addition to being the poker expert, is also the car expert. Is that a cool car, Bog? We'll defer to your judgment.
If you got, not really. It's not.
I wouldn't be impressed by it, but it's a fine car.
I left one on the side of the road in Cocoa Beach, Florida once, and I never saw that car again.
That's very Worm behavior. If I can't say so.
It was a 2-wheel drive. But yeah, I don't know. It's a nice car. I don't know. I think that he doesn't mean like it was a nice car, like it was a Lamborghini or something. They're just kind of like knucklehead young guys.
Sure, yeah.
He's got a car.
I like the scene where they go to like, I don't know, what is it, a country club or a frat house or something, and play with like the Romney boys. I like that part.
Yeah.
The Golf Bros was the best one of the little card room things.
Oh, is that what that was? When they have that girl that like,
No. So the first one, the movie begins. They go to a frat house at an Ivy League college, right?
Yeah.
And so, but one of these ones where these guys live at, and it's big money and stuff. But later on, they go to they play golf pros, and the golf pros look really great. They all got.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then. I'm basically exhausted my stuff. Bog, here's one fun thing for you, and we'll promote something that you guys are doing. So you guys are doing this really cool thing on your show where you're reviewing, I guess, every single episode of the X-Files. I don't know if you're doing all of them, but
correct.
So I went on IMDb, and they have this tool where you can enter like the name of two different movies or shows, and I entered Grounders and X-Files. There's one guy that's in both. And it's the last guy in the movie. It's the cab driver. When Damon gets in the car, that guy appears season 9, episode 12 of the X-Files.
Yeah,
he's credited as Bearded Man in the X-Files.
I love that scene because that's also kind of realistic scene that when you're playing with, you're sort of in other scenes of other people, like you just look like another gambler. If you're a poker pro, but what you're doing is completely different, people won't understand that. Whatever you just say, yeah, I'm just going to gamble, whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, I have another Bog question. This is sort of crossover to the podcast he was nice enough to do with me. But Bog Beef, would Caesar have been the greatest poker player of all time?
No. I mean, no. I don't think so. I mean, Caesar. It's hard to say because it's a different Caesar's world. The things. So Caesar. The main things I'm sort of picking up here is, so Caesar in real life was borrowing everything he could all the time. He was always trying to double up, as you'd say. So like if he made 10,000, he would borrow 50, using that 10,000 as the principal, whatever. However, Caesar was operating in a world that he could control. You can't control the cards. So you have to operate differently. I don't know. It's too different. It's hard to say. I mean, who knows?
That's interesting because you were talking about how he was so good at
I did.
Preparing for contingencies and stuff. So that's what made me think maybe he would have been good. But no, what you said makes sense.
Yeah, no, God, now I did think about what I did say there. Yeah, so the thing that I always picked up and what immediately attracted me to Caesar, the main topics I used to talk about is usually patronage and Caesar. That's my main things. What immediately attracted me to my sort of Bible for politics was the part that it was basically written from a guy from perspective of a gambler, is that Caesar, in Caesar's diaries, he describes this very advanced way of thinking about variance, which is that's the word. Yeah. Which is the sort of the basis of how you have to think as a professional gambler. Like, when you talk to people like Worm in real life and they tell you like, oh, I had a bad run of cards or whatever, you can immediately just know, like, you should stop playing cards because you don't have the mindset. That's not how you have to think. You have to think about variance a certain way. And Caesar describes it just brilliantly in his diaries. And I always just thought that was crazy. This guy 2,000 years ago had arrived at this very advanced way of thinking about variance. He was sort of talking about in battle.
Yeah, but it makes sense what you said, that he had enough control that he could be super aggressive, maybe more aggressive than would work in poker.
Yeah, but I mean, going by what we just said and what I said on that podcast, yeah, Caesar would be a great poker player, of course. Yeah.
I'll wrap it up right here, but just the kind of the final scene with Teddy KGB. I think it's a great scene, and I think it's really quality filmmaking too, where Teddy KGB realizes he's beaten, he freaks out. Then he comes back down and he has the famous line. Does anyone want to do the line?
Pay that man his money.
Yeah. Got to be the most quoted line from the movie. But yeah, I guess I'll wrap it up there.
Well, Cool Frasier, I sort of spoke over you. Do you want to say something?
I forgot what I was going to say. Isn't it a Miramax film?
Yeah, but I don't think Harvey was involved.
Okay. I was going to say, though, like, I do feel like maybe the downward trend in quality has to do with the Me Too movement. This is my newest take.
Oh, and I don't know if Gretchen Mol and Femke Janssen were in that movie, if not for
right. But just like this, like I was thinking,
what if Harvey didn't say no when Petra came over to his house?
I was like, why aren't there any, movies like this anymore? Kind of smaller movies about these like niche things. And it's because like those types of studios are gone and it's all just these mega studios. So it's either these like mega movies or these really tiny movies. And so this kind of like medium movie just doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, I think Harvey didn't think this one would make money, and he was right. It cost 12, made 22, but I think Hollywood math, you're supposed to at least double your budget. So,
by the way, the only other thing I'd add about poker that they do show a little bit in the movie, but it's totally real. If you slow roll people, you will get your ass beat. And what slow rolling is if the hand is over, it's time for people to show their cards, right? So now if you have the dead nuts, if you have the best hand possible based on the community cards, the etiquette is that you need to just show your hand and say, look, I have the nuts, the best hand. It's my pot to collect. Now the other guy is going to take his hand and just leave it folded and lose the hand. He's not going to show his cards. Now in real life, people do this occasionally, and this is like the biggest thing that can get your ass beat, because it's like it's totally legal, but you got to be a real dick to do this. So that's where the hand ends, and you just look at the other guy. The other guy thinks he's got something. You're sort of holding his hopes and dreams in the palm of your hand. You know exactly what's going to happen. He shows you his hand. He's got 2 pair or something. And you go, oh, that's nice. And then you say, well, here's a full house. No drama at the table. Yeah, that is called slow rolling, and that will get your ass kicked.
All right, guys, don't slow roll. Go subscribe to Good Ol Boyz. Pay that man his money. I don't know, $5 or something. It's good content. And thank you a ton, Bog, for joining. When I started this show, you were one of those people that I definitely wanted to have on, and so thanks a ton. Thanks to Cool Frasier and Degree Studies as well.
Thanks. By the way, this is a walk through the past for me. I don't really get to talk about this stuff very much, so I got to sort of do this. I believe it or not, I don't have a show about poker. We don't really talk about poker that much. This is sort of a walk through the past for me.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, thanks for coming on, and always welcome back.
Thank you.
Thanks, Granite.
Thank you.
See you guys.